Hey guys, welcome back to the garden. Today we're going to start off on a positive note and we're going to look at putting some fall seeds in. So join me as I do that today. But first of all, as always, why don't you get your wellies? Meet me in the garden. Well, guys, I'm out here in the garden, and as we talked about the other day, not a great year for gardeners. So we're gonna try and go in with a more positive approach today. And I'm gonna start off in this bed, but I'm gonna work my way around where I have empty spots and put some fall seeds in there. So like most gardeners, I get a handful of seeds, lots of packages here, probably more than I need, honestly. But we're going to just start. I'm going to do mostly root vegetables today. So I don't know how your family is. I cannot get people too excited about radishes, but in the fall they do tend to be sweeter, especially if you leave them in the ground till it gets frosty outside. They will start to produce as lots, in fact almost all root vegetables will produce sucrose, which is sort of like nature's antifreeze for plants, and it is produced by most of these. Kale is another one. Anything that says it's frost hardy, typically they do produce sucrose. So that is also a type of sugar. If you think glucose, sucrose, if you're not familiar with those, they do produce those, and so that is why these things tend to be sweeter when you plant them in the fall and let them stay out in the cold, versus planting them when it might still be cold outside in the spring, but it's warming up. So I'm going to try and find space for most of these. Now, I did mention on the last video that we have had a little bit of a problem with rabbits this year, and so here I am about to put carrots down here in the ground behind me. That's going to be really tempting for them, so I'm going to have to do some kind of netting. Some of my beds already have something over them that I can attach netting to. This one does not, and in fact really I have probably 4 beds I'm going to have to do something with. So you can either put chicken wire or netting over individual plants, or you can build something that'll allow it to cover a whole bed, which is probably what I'm going to do here, just because it's going to be cheaper. If I use netting, that does seem to keep rabbits out here. You can always replace it with chicken wire if you need to, but that's for another day, because these aren't going to germinate for a few days anyway. So this is the first bed we're going to start on. First thing you want to do, if you got mulch on there like me, you're going to want to pull that back and out the way. Hope you can see this. I think you can. I'm going to move this soaker hose out the way. I watched some of the weather stuff and it's really pretty crazy. So we're really not 100% sure if we're going to get cold early or if we're going to go back to being really hot. So I'm not sure yet, but you know what? Sometimes gardening is a little bit of a risk. Most of what I'm putting in today is going to survive if it gets frosty. The problem might be more if it stays warmer longer than we think. I'm fairly confident that won't happen, but we don't know 100%. So you want to scrape away most of this mulch, just because you want these plants to see the light a little bit. I'm going to have to do some cleanup anyway here. So what I'm doing is basically just making a couple of channels of soil so that I can plant some things in there. By the end of the growing season, this has had time to get worn down a bit. And during the winter months, if I left just this on, it would probably, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice these marigolds because they're just kind of in the way. You know, I left them in longer because they're the only thing still living, but, well, over here anyway. Actually may put those in a spot that some others came out of and see if they'll survive a bit longer. Okay, so what we'll do first, I think, is put a row of carrots in here. I'm going to probably have to put a couple of things in each bed. So these are the carrots that we'll do. We'll do a row of those up front. And something that is useful when you do carrots, because they are really tiny seeds. You can buy these that are already, what do they call that? They're kind of coated with a clay. I forget the exact name for that. I'll have to look it up in a little bit. But carrots are really small, so it's hard to sort of control them unless you buy that type. And then the other thing is they'll dry out because they're sown basically on the surface. So I'm just going to go along here. Let me pull that out. I'm just going to go along here. And the idea is you just go along and put a thin layer of seeds. And this package, I'd already used some of them, so there we go. So once you put your seeds on for carrots, you're just going to kind of tap those down so they're sort of firmly against the surface, but they're not actually covered by anything for now anyway, soil wise. Okay, so let's have a look at that second row, and I think we're going to put our kale back there. So the type that I have is, as I showed you, it's called Russian Red or Ragged Jack. It's a fairly hardy one. It can tolerate frost too. And so I'm going to put a few of those in. And then the carrots will have to thin out a little bit to about every 2 to 3 inches. And this will thin out to about 8 inches apart once they come up. But I'll go ahead and sow fairly liberally just so we have a good chance of getting some of this to come up. So now I'm going to lightly shower those in, just with the watering can this time. And if you're using a hose, if you have a mister setting while they're just getting started, misting them is a good idea. Now we are actually forecasted to have thunderstorms, fairly good chance, and if they come, they'll probably come in the early hours of the morning, 3 to 6, somewhere around there. So I'm okay with giving these a little bit more watering, I guess, than I was going to, because I don't want that rain to get too crazy tonight, especially on the carrots. Those seeds are particularly small. So what you can do with carrots, which is a useful tip, I think, some of you may be aware of this, if you have any kind of scrap wood, boards, planks, fencing, whatever, you can actually just lay that over where your seeds are, and that will protect them. The carrot seeds do not need the light to germinate, but you will need to check under these every day so that if they start popping up, you'll want to take these away and let them do their thing. But these are some old pieces of 2x4. They've got nails already through them, so I forget what the project was. But anyway, so I'm covering those up with that. The kale we'll just leave. I put a lot, so even if it storms pretty heavy, I think they'll be okay. But the main reason you want to do this board over the carrots is they're so tiny, if they get the chance to dry out, they will do that really quick. So keeping that wood over there till they have some, a taproot started and all of that, they'll be able to get water from a little bit deeper. But right now, while there's seeds, this is a good plan. Okay, so that's that bed. Well, except for the netting. Okay, so now I'm moving around to this next bed. Same thing, I'm gonna move a lot of this back, this mulch. Got a few weeds coming up in this one, despite the mulch, but that's okay, not many. That hasn't been a big problem this year, so that's good. But we'll pull them out. There's also some grass in here that needs to be weed-eated around the bottom. Oops. And yeah, these little squirrels out here like to plant stuff in the beds, and that starts to come up. So let me get that down to the soil. This, in Arkansas, we have a lot of like crabgrass, and we have a lot of native things that they're just awful to try and get rid of. So you're sort of left dealing with them a little bit. But whatever your favorite mulch is, that is definitely the best way to deal with that. If you can mulch it well, most weeds will struggle, and they're easy to pull out if they're rooted in mulch. So I'm going to take this excess off of here. Okay. All right, so let's see what we have left to plant now. Okay, so in this bed, I think we'll do the turnips and the beets. So I'm going to put the turnips at the back. These I'm really not sure how they're going to do. Turnips, you want to plant those at about 1/4 of an inch. Those are, I don't know why I was expecting them to be bigger than that, but they're little seeds. They sort of look like radish seeds, honestly. And beets are another one of those joys in the garden that you, sorry, turnips I'm talking about now, I'm sorry. Turnips are another one that's kind of a hard sell because, in England where I grew up, these were more common, but I wouldn't say they were really popular by any stretch. So when it says 1/4 of an inch, what I do typically is just sow them on top and then do a light covering of soil. So and just kind of cover that up just with your fingers, get it over a little bit. There we go. And those will, again, that's another one will have to be thinned out. All right, next one is the beets. And this is a variety I've never grown these. Actually, I really haven't messed around with beets but one other time, I think. And beets and turnips are sort of the same thing in our family. Nobody gets real excited about it. Beets, though, as most of you I'm sure know, whether you love them or hate them, beets are incredibly healthy. It really is one of the superfoods. And in fact, it's so good of a food that you really almost should eat it even if you hate it, just for the health benefits. So, all right, so these are going to be about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to kind of watch these a little bit more carefully. These seeds are bigger, and they're kind of got a little bit of a rough texture to them. Kind of a little bit weird feeling. I don't know they're really like anything else. Nothing's coming to mind on what they remind me of, but they're just sort of a little bit sharp of a coating on them. And now your rabbits will be attracted to, if not the actual root, although carrots, of course, they love. Everybody knows that, but the greens are edible, and the rabbits love the green part of all of these things that we're planting today. You get some more of those seeds. Put a few more in at this end. The turnips and the beets are going to take a bit longer to come up. The fastest of all of these is going to be your radishes, and they can come in, some varieties, in 3 days, but most of them start popping up at 5 or sooner. So we're going to cover those up. All right. Okay. So that bed's good, and we'll water that one in. I'm going to leave Mr. White Rabbit over here. Maybe he'll scare the others off. I doubt it. He doesn't look super realistic, you know. Okay, so just give these a pretty good watering in. They're going to get probably another good watering tonight. Maybe. The biggest thing with all of these seeds, and the reason I've pulled that hose back but not put it away, is constant or regular moisture to where it's very consistent in how you give it. That helps a lot to get your seeds up and going. Okay, that's 2. We're making progress. That's good. Now, some of you probably remember this bed. It's got this hoop house on it, like a mini hoop house. So it enabled me to start some things a little bit earlier last year. We've got some crabgrass in here pretty bad. And this almost looks like it could benefit from me just pulling all that up and then maybe giving this a new bag of soil on top, because this is really sunk. So let me do that real quick. I'm going to bring you back as soon as I've done it. Okay, so here's our new soil. And I'm going to put some spinach at the back of this bed. Again, the timing may or may not work out. Spinach is, I have found, a little bit picky. Once going, not too bad. And this is Bloomsdale spinach, which is a very common variety. We're going to plant that at about a 1/2 inch, much like the beets. And we'll thin these out. Once they're up and going, we'll thin them out to about every 6 inches, 5 or 6. So, so the nice thing about this bed is it does have the archway trellis on it, which is nice for if you want to grow something up. Now, the other thing I want to plant in here is some peas. And peas, a lot of them you can let them just sprawl. Most of them do have something of an inclination to climb, so I'm going to put those on this side where they can grab a hold of the lattice here if they want to. The cattle panel, sorry, over here. This is a little bit tricky a bed to get to. I've got the camera kind of in the way up there, so let's push those in about a 1/2 inch. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. When I first started gardening, I would almost take a measuring stick to do this. Some people use dibblers. I'm just not that picky anymore. I'm really not. Okay, and we'll do the peas at the front. And these can actually be planted, you know, finally 4 inches apart. So I think what I'll do here, and these do have to go in about 1 inch. So I think what we'll do is a couple of seeds, and then I'll just thin these out. If they both come up, we'll thin them out. These seeds are a little old too, so we will see what happens. It's amazed me over the years. I've had seeds that have been literally, like, I planted some this year that were from 2013. So that's 12 years ago, and they came up. They were tomatoes of some kind. Okay. Well, that is it for now. Well, gardeners, thanks a lot for joining me. We've got some more things in now, so fingers crossed. I hope you found that interesting. I mean, I'm just planting seeds, but after a rough season like this one, this is a good time to do it. We're either going to hit it big or we'll have next spring, right? But it'll be good. I think we'll get something out of this. We'll see what happens. We're going to check on these in a few days, and when stuff starts coming up, I'll show you. So hope you enjoyed it. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I have lots of viewers that don't subscribe. It doesn't really affect you too much other than you have another channel on your list, but it helps me a lot. So consider subscribing if you have enjoyed some of my videos, and I thank you very much for watching. So until next time, bye now.